Hello, all you minders out there. Welcome back to the Mind of Watercolor. And we're gonna do a bird today. Gonna draw a bird. Several of you out there were requesting a bird, and I'm not sure request was the right word. I think several of you were actually begging for me to do another bird. So who am I to argue? I'm just sketching it in right here with a light gray colored pencil. Actually, it's a watercolor pencil. I'm going to do this in a dip pen. Just wanted to switch it up. Now, this little reservoir that you see in there, you need to make sure if you use a dip pen, you dip it down to that reservoir so that that's designed to hold the ink. And I don't know, I just like switching things up, and using dip pens are great. Yeah, you can actually ink quite a bit. If you fill it up to that little keyhole reservoir, you can actually get in a lot of inking before you have to go dip it again. This is the Speedball Signature Series set, and they kind of give you this fancy little gold nib holder. And that's a 513 extra fine drawing nib or writing nib. And it has a really great feel to it, very expressive, and you can press. I'm using it kind of sideways. Get a little bit finer line that way, but you can actually press so that the tip spreads and get a really thick line. So you can vary the line easily between thick and thin. And it's just fun to use a dip pen every now and then. I'm using India ink. For those of you who don't know, India ink has a shellac in it. It dries permanent, and it's not suitable for fountain pens. It's great for dip pens or brushes. Brushes, provided you keep your brush wet and moist and clean it out frequently. But do not use India ink in a fountain pen. You can see I finally, after outlining that whole bird, I finally ran out of ink and then had to dip again. So that reservoir holds a lot of ink. I think a lot of people have the impression of a dip pen is, oh, I got to dip it like every 3 seconds. You don't. If you have to dip the pen every 3 seconds, you either don't have the right nib or you're not properly loading it. So there's a good shot right there of how much you can vary the line. Gives you a really neat expressive line. So, and one of the great things about dip pens is you can use all kinds of different colored acrylic inks out there on the market. FW makes a number of really cool acrylic inks, different colors. That those again are inks that will not go in a fountain pen. That would ruin it. Liquid watercolor, like the Dr. Martin's Hydrus. And one of these days I'll do a demo on that. I used to use dip pens and do a lot of detailed branch work if I want to do a really fine, detailed tree branches. Now, what the heck am I doing here, you're probably asking. I just decided I wanted to keep this loose, make myself be loose. So, just spattering in some Payne's Gray and Ultramarine Blue and sprayed it with a spray bottle. You saw me do that. And, if you do this right, it has kind of a unifying effect. This is a White Breasted Nuthatch. And the White Breasted Nuthatch wings have this same color, this sort of blue slate gray color. And so having this color go through the bird, I think makes for a nice, not only expressive and loose background, but it sort of unifies the whole painting. And as this comes together, you'll see. So just splashing in a little bit of of Azo green to variegate the background. And a white breasted nuthatch has a white breast, so I'm just lifting up some of the paint and preserve the highlights there in the breast using my trusty Neptune quill, the number 4 Princeton Neptune quill. Great for doing background washes because of the water that it holds, and then I can go in and detail with that point. And I'm just alternating between real time and speed it up, where things get repetitious. But hopefully it's not going so fast that you can't still tell exactly what I'm doing. So more of that Payne's gray and blue, and I'm starting to adjust the values, putting more dark values at the top to make the bird pop. And the reference I'm using has a really dynamic lighting condition, so that's one of the reasons I wanted to paint this. This is my Strathmore 400 watercolor sketch journal, which doesn't work too bad for this kind of painting. I'm not a fan. I really turned out to not be a very big fan of the Strathmore 400. It's okay. I have come to accept that some of it depends on how you paint. If you paint this way, you probably won't ever have trouble with it. The problem is if you get into some heavy layering of paint, multiple layers, it'll give you fits. These single are just light to dark with maybe 1 to 2 layer applications, dark over light. It's not terrible. But still, I had sort of christened this as a bird journal, and so I'm trying to do more work in it. And as long as I keep the painting style workable for this type paper, it's not too bad. Doing some wet modeling of the light. Get to this point, and I just love doing this kind of detailing. And I think hopefully you can see now how the splashes in the background with the same color kind of has unified it. As long as you keep those whites and highlights preserved and you know where they are, you have good reference that you're following. Determining light and shadow is difficult with any sort of realism without really good reference. So I didn't copy my reference exactly, but I am following it pretty close for the light dynamics. A little bit of sepia and orange iron oxide for underneath their brown tones underneath the bird. Just gradually working to the dark accents. As I said before, the White Breasted Nuthatch has a lot of sort of slate blue, gray tones, and some nice dark little notches here and there. This is the Uniball Signo white gel pen, and I like it. I also like the Jelly Roll, which is a finer pen. This is a broader pen. But when you're doing these loose kind of journaled birds, you can do the highlights by preserving them with masking fluid, but if you're staying kind of loose and quick, you're not really sure where they're going to be. So I like to just, since it's fine lines, I don't usually like to do much more than fine lines with opaque white. If this were a tighter, very detailed painting, then I probably would have masked those highlights off. And here I'm bringing in the Jelly Roll pen, which now has a finer point. The Uniball Signo is a little more opaque, and the Jelly Roll pen is finer, so it's a nice trade-off. And you can actually re-wet a little bit those gel pens, and if they get a little too stark, you can pick some of it up or blend it in with the surrounding watercolor. Here I'm just dividing some of those white lines with black lines just to get some nice feather striping going down the wing. Here's what I'm talking about. Just wetting up some of the area, and the surrounding blue-gray tones just kind of mix. Trying to make some of that white not quite so stark. But I'm liking the way the light dynamics are working on this bird. And I'm also liking how fresh and loose it's looking. I'll have links to these supplies as usual down in the description. Brushes, the dip pen, the white gel pens, all of it. The sketchbook if you're interested. And there we are. That's the finished piece. And I like it. I think it works. Thanks everyone for watching. I so appreciate it. Thank you so much, Patreon supporters. You're my sponsor for these episodes. And if you guys like this, I hope you give me a thumbs up and subscribe. And we'll see you guys next time.